My parents literally took me to court to push me out of the place I was living in so my sister could have her very first house. And right there in that courtroom, my daughter looked the judge straight in the eye and said, "Can I show you something my dad does not know about yet?" The judge gave her a small nod. She lifted her tablet and hit play. "Anyway, my name is Luke. I am 35 years old, and I work as an architect. I am the older kid in the family, the dependable one, the guy everybody calls when something needs to be measured or fixed. When most people show up with opinions, I show up with a toolbox and a tape measure. I design schools and smaller public buildings for a living. And when Saturday rolls around, I end up repairing whatever has broken in the neighborhood, hinges that squeak, fences leaning like they are tired, roofs sagging after a long rainfall. Folks reach out when water pours through ceilings or when they just want to pick my brain, which is basically free labor, but dressed up with nicer words. I am also a dad. My daughter, Ellie, is 7. She inherited my stubborn chin and her mother's brutal honesty. When she laughs, it sounds like somebody shaking a jar full of marbles. When she gets quiet, she is building things, towers made from cereal boxes, whole city blocks squeezed into shoe boxes, full worlds assembled out of tape and scraps. My family knows all of this. And they also know that my sister, Jenna, has always been the shining star. She is 30, works in event marketing, smiles like she is permanently auditioning for a local news anchor job, and has the timing of a cat waiting to beg for dinner. If life were a living room, she would be the fancy lamp everybody rearranges the whole room around. Growing up, I learned early that help in our family only traveled in one direction. When Jenna needed a backdrop built for a pop-up event, or a wall repainted, or a hole patched after one of her clumsy boyfriends kicked through the drywall before a landlord inspection, guess who was standing there with drop cloths? Me. But when I needed anything more than the occasional, "We are proud of you," the whole room suddenly got silent. 2 years back, I moved into the carriage house behind my parents' home while I was working on rebuilding my credit after a hospital situation with Ellie. It was not a freebie, I tore that place down to the studs. I ran new Romex wiring, fixed uneven floors, installed proper egress windows. I paid for all the materials myself. My parents called it temporary, and I could hear the unspoken part after that word hanging in the air like a hook. The moment it all started to shift happened during a Sunday dinner in early spring. We were in my parents' kitchen. The whole place smelled like lemon oil and roast chicken. My mom was arranging asparagus on plates like she was auditioning for a cooking competition. My dad was carving the chicken in that way that makes you want to take the knife away from him. Jenna swirled her wine and said as casually as someone saying grace, "So, you are still living in the carriage house?" "Yeah," I answered. "Until I close on something. The prices out there are insane." She tilted her head. "It is kind of perfect back there. You know, like a starter home." I laughed because sometimes laughing is the only thing you can do to avoid a fight. "Perfect for what?" I asked. "For me," she said, like it should have been the most obvious thing in the world. "It is small, but cute. And I am turning 31. It is time for me to own something." My dad kept cutting. My mom kept setting plates. Nobody looked at me. Ellie tugged my sleeve. "Daddy?" "Yeah, bug. Can I have the drumstick you do not want?" "Take both," I told her, because suddenly my appetite was gone. Jenna shrugged one shoulder. "It would be good for the family, you know. For me to finally settle down." My mom repeated the idea slowly, like she was tasting it. "It would be nice to see Jenna in her own place." That is when I heard it, that quiet internal click I get when a detail snaps into place on a blueprint. Not a slam. Not a shout. Just that sound you hear right before you realize the whole plan is already in motion. I tapped the chicken skin with the back of my fork but did not eat any. I looked at my parents. Then at Jenna. I did not say a word. Not yet. But that was the first crack. You cannot design roofs year after year without learning how to spot a leak. And you cannot grow up as the kid who is not the favorite without recognizing a plan long before anybody speaks it out loud. That night, after I tucked Ellie in and she slid her tablet under her pillow like it was some kind of diary, she whispered, "Are we moving?" "We are fine," I told her. "Go to sleep." And I believed it. Or at least I thought I did. But the story kept writing itself without me. It did not start in a courtroom. It started slow, the way most bad things do. "Luke, can you grab coffee after work?" my mom texted. So I showed up at the cafe near my job, still wearing my work boots and a safety vest sprinkled with drywall dust. She had a folder with her. Parents think folders make bad news sound professional. "We have been talking," she said. "Ah," I replied. "Your father and I think it is time to make things official with the carriage house." "Official how?" I asked. She took a careful sip of her drink. "Jenna has been saving." "For what?" "For a down payment," she said matter-of-factly. "On the little building you are living in now. For her first home. It is important for young women to build equity," she added, like she was quoting from a pamphlet. "I agree," I said. "She should buy a home." "She wants that home," my mom said, tapping the folder. I exhaled slowly. "I am not a picture frame on a wall. You cannot just slide me over." "Do not be dramatic," she said. "I am not. I am being literal. I am an architect," I told her. She pushed the folder toward me. Inside were comparable sales, a sloppy outline of the property line drawn like a child mapping buried treasure, and something that looked dangerously close to a drafted family tenancy agreement, with my name faintly erased, like they had already practiced. "Mom. Just read it." The agreement gave me 90 days. It talked about family legacy, about gifting equity, about supporting the next generation. It read like a sentimental greeting card mixed with an eviction notice. I am not proud of what I did next. I laughed. Not a cruel laugh, just the kind of exhausted laugh you give when a beam you poured concrete around suddenly turns out to be decorative. "I cannot do 90 days, I said. "Ellie has school. The bus route. Her routine. It would be good for her to learn flexibility," my mom told me. A week later, during dinner, Jenna circled back to it again, slipping into the conversation like a cat returning to a warm cushion. "I will keep paying rent," she said. "And I will be the cool aunt next door." "You have not paid rent anywhere since college," I told her. She rolled her eyes. "That is not the point." The point, apparently, was the story she was selling. And my parents bought every part of it. Then came the papers. Not from a cafe folder, but by certified mail. The kind you have to sign for like you are picking up a dangerous package. Plaintiffs, it said at the top. My parents' names. Defendant. Mine. I stood on the tiny porch of the carriage house, reading those words again and again while the mail carrier pretended to comment on the weather. "Daddy," Ellie said, leaning her little arm on my knee. "Why are you making your thinking face?" "Because some grown-ups are being silly," I said. "That is what you call cruelty when you cannot explain it to a first grader."
The lawsuit was dressed up to look like common sense. The complaint called me a trespasser. It accused me of being an unlawful occupant. It claimed my permission to stay had been revoked. It insisted I was refusing to leave and that my living there interfered with what they called the reasonable expectation of plaintiff Jenna to own her first home. They really used that exact line. Own her first home. In a legal filing no less. As if a dream suddenly needed a sheriff and a court date. I called my dad. "You actually sued me." "We did not sue you," he said. "The lawyer handled the documents." "So you hired a lawyer," I said, "to sue me?" "It is not personal. You literally wrote my name on the paperwork." "It is simply time," he said. "Jenna needs stability." "And what does Ellie need?" I asked. "A suitcase?" Silence. Then somewhere in the background I heard a television laugh track. It felt like someone choosing sides. I wanted to explode. I wanted to shout. But I did not. When things get bad, my brain goes into problem-solving mode. It is just how I survive. So I got methodical. I took photographs. I saved screenshots of old text messages. I printed the rent payments from my bank. The transfers labeled carriage house, April, heat, water, insulation. I found the email from 2 summers earlier where my mom had written, "We really appreciate you taking care of the taxes on the outbuilding this year." I made a list of every time I fixed their leaking main roof, their ice dam disaster, the broken sump pump. I was not gathering all this as weapons. I was gathering proof. Because people rewrite stories when they feel guilty. Paper never does. When I dropped Ellie off at school, she squeezed my hand tight. "We are not moving, right?" "Not if I can stop it," I told her. "And you can stop it," she said with complete certainty. "I am going to try," I said. That night I called my ex Lydia. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Quick thing. Everything okay? My parents served me. With dinner? With a lawsuit. I could hear her long exhale through the phone. Do you want me to take Ellie more nights while you sort this out? Maybe, I said. But can I ask you something first? Sure. If this actually ends up in court, please do not bring Ellie unless the judge directly asks for her. I do not want her in that room unless absolutely necessary. Of course not, Lydia said. Then softer, I am sorry. Yeah, I said. Me too. The following weeks were rough. Relatives started a group chat tossing out lines like family is everything, Jenna deserves a chance, it is only fair. Apparently fairness now meant shoving a kid's drawings into storage boxes because a 30-year-old wanted an Instagram moment featuring a pair of house keys. But the hardest part was not the documents, it was the tiny cracks in the relationships. My mom stopped dropping leftovers at my door. My dad stopped pretending to check my boiler. Jenna stopped saying please. Whenever she visited, she stood in my doorway with her arms crossed, looking around like she was a realtor sizing up her next commission. I could put floating shelves here, she said once, tracing imaginary lines across my wall with her eyes. Maybe paint this brick. Jenna, I said. What? She replied, feigning innocence like it was a language she had practiced. This is my home. She gave me a smile without any warmth. For now. At night, when the house settled and the radiators clicked like they were counting time, I lay awake rehearsing calm sentences. Because if I walked into court angry, I would look like the enemy. If I walked in steady, maybe the truth would finally show itself. When you are an architect, you learn to understand weight. Some walls carry everything. Others are just decoration. I still did not know which kind of walls my parents were. But eventually the court date came, like it always does. The courtroom was much smaller than television makes them look. Beige walls. Flags that had seen better days. A clock that could not seem to stay on track. The judge was a woman in her mid-50s with a firm but patient expression. The bailiff moved with the rhythm of a ticking clock. Jenna arrived wearing a white blazer that belonged in a lifestyle magazine. My parents sat shoulder to shoulder, gripping the bench as if it were a lifeboat. Lydia sat behind me, because she is a better person than I ever deserved, and Ellie sat beside her with her tablet tucked in her backpack like treasure. The clerk read the case number. My parents' lawyer stood up first, speaking in smooth, expensive sentences. Permissive use. Revocation. Client's right to quiet enjoyment. Daughter's first opportunity at home ownership. He preached it like a sermon. First home. He said it over and over. When it was my turn I stood. My mouth felt like chalk. But architects present to city boards, we are trained to breathe through nerves. I am not a squatter, I said. I am their son. I have paid utilities, covered taxes on the outbuilding, and sent rent every single month. I remodeled the structure with their permission, at my own cost. I have receipts. I set the folder on the table. The sound it made cut through the room. Truth has its own sound. They want to evict me, I said, so my sister can call it her first home. Those are their words. But this is not new. This is part of a long pattern of me keeping that building livable while they treat it like something they can just hand out. The judge raised a hand. This is not small claims with emotions, she said, though she was not unkind. I need facts. Understood. We went through photographs, emails. The one text from my mom. Thank you for covering taxes again. We will pay you back. They never did. We went through the payment notes. Even the building permits my dad asked me to pull. Because your name gets approvals faster, he had said. Was not even true. But he believed it. The lawyer objected. Irrelevant. Pattern is relevant in equity, the judge said. Then Jenna stood. I am not the bad guy, she said, her voice polished. I have been saving. I deserve what every woman deserves. A safe home. You do, I said quietly. You just do not need mine to have that. She stared at me like I had ruined her birthday. Then my dad jumped in loud as always. He was only supposed to stay until he got his act together. I have had my act together for 10 years, I said. You just never liked the script. Enough, the judge said. I have the information I need. And then it happened. A small hand tugged on Lydia's sleeve. It was Ellie who had been quietly drawing. She whispered something. Lydia shook her head. But Ellie stood up anyway. Kids rise like lightning, fast enough that everyone looks. Your Honor, she said, her voice tiny but steady, can I show you something my daddy does not know? The courtroom went silent. The judge softened but kept her authority. And who are you? I am Ellie, she said. I am 7. The judge looked at me. I nodded. You may, the judge said gently. Ellie walked up to the front, pulled her tablet from her backpack like she was revealing a secret. It is a video, she said. From our camera. I learned how to save it. It sounded like show and tell, but the judge took the tablet from the bailiff like it was evidence, because it was. And where is this from? The judge asked. The day Aunt Jenna came over when Daddy was at work, Ellie said. She told me not to tell. But I needed to. On the tablet, the video filled the entire screen. It showed our living room in soft afternoon light. The timestamp sat at the top. Then the door opened. My mom and Jenna stepped inside while I was gone. My mom went straight to my mail and started flipping through it. Jenna walked into the kitchen, reached up, and pulled the battery out of the carbon monoxide detector. Quick, practiced like she had rehearsed it. "Do not touch that," my mom said in the recording. Not as a warning. More like a line she had been assigned to deliver. "Relax," Jenna said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "If the inspector fails him, he has to move out. It will make things go quicker." My mom did not argue. She lifted a pile of Ellie's drawings from my desk and said, "We will just say we thought these were old." On the video, I heard Ellie's little voice from the staircase. "Hi, Andy." Jenna whipped around, still smiling. Not even a crack in the mask. "Hey, Peanut. Remember, secret, okay? Do not tell Daddy we were here. It is a surprise." "What kind of surprise?" Tiny Ellie asked. "The kind that is good for the family," my mom said. The video kept rolling. Jenna walking over to the breaker box. "Which one is heat?" she muttered. "In winter we cannot," my mom started. "Not now," Jenna cut her off. "Later. We will be smart." The audio was clear. Their faces were even clearer. I honestly did not know if I wanted to hug my daughter or throw up. The judge watched the entire recording without blinking. When it ended, she handed the tablet back to the bailiff. The courtroom felt hot and freezing at the same time. She looked directly at my parents. "Would you like to be heard?" My mom opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "We did not mean." The judge held up one finger. "Here is what we are not going to do," she said, her voice low, which is somehow scarier than yelling. "We are not going to pretend this is about empowering a young woman when I just watched a video showing a coordinated attempt to sabotage safety equipment and manipulate an inspection." The room went silent. "You asked this court for equity," she continued. "Equity requires conscience." My dad, sensing the moment slipping away, tried one last swing. "He is ungrateful." "This is not about gratitude," I said, my voice steady in a way that felt borrowed from someone calmer than me. "This is not about payback. This is about closure." The judge nodded like that was exactly what she expected to hear. "Motion denied," she said firmly. "Petition dismissed with prejudice." Then she added, "I am issuing an order preventing the plaintiffs from entering the defendant's residence without explicit permission. And I am forwarding this case to the Housing Authority for further review regarding attempted interference with safety devices." She turned to Ellie. "You did the right thing." Ellie blinked. "Are we moving?" "Not today," the judge said kindly. Then she looked at me, her voice softer. "Change your locks." Somewhere in the back row, a relative let out a sound like a rubber band snapping. It was over, and not over at the same time. News in families moves like smoke through drywall. It leaks through every gap and sticks to everything. By the time we got home, 3 aunts had texted nothing but question marks, and an uncle I barely talked to sent me a link titled, 10 Ways to be Less Selfish. Lydia hugged Ellie on the porch. "You are a hero," she whispered. Ellie shrugged like she had simply colored inside the lines. Inside the house, I sat on the couch and stared at the carbon monoxide detector. Battery in place. Working. I pressed the test button just to hear it scream. The missed calls came fast. First my mom, then my dad, then Jenna, then a number I did not recognize that turned out to be my mom calling from the landline. Guilt always uses every communication channel it can find. I did not answer anyone. I ordered new deadbolts. I hired an electrician who was not me. I texted our landlord-tenant lawyer asking how to write a letter that simply said, "Enough." At bedtime, Ellie curled into my lap. "Did I get you in trouble?" she asked. "You got us out of trouble," I told her. "Are Grandma and Grandpa mad at me?" "They are mad at the video," I said. "And the video is true." She thought for a moment, then nodded. "Truth is like seatbelts. Annoying but important." I laughed for the first time in a week. "Exactly." The next morning, my dad appeared on the sidewalk like a storm cloud. He did not step onto the stoop. The injunction notice had already reached them. He held his hands out like the whole thing was a mystery. "You embarrassed us. In a room you insisted on walking into," I said. He ignored that. "Your mother is sick over this." "She is not sick," I said. "She is upset she did not get what she wanted." He rocked on his heels. "We were trying to help your sister." "I know," I said. "You always are." He looked past me into the living room like he wished he could erase the existence of that video. "She is the baby." "As if that is a legal argument," I said. "Then buy her a crib. Stop asking me to be the mattress." He flinched. Maybe at the words. Maybe at the truth. For the next week, the house felt strangely quiet. "No, we made lasagna, come by." "No, are you free Saturday? The fence needs you." It was the first time I realized how much of my schedule had been shaped by other people's expectations. Entire Saturdays opened up like empty lots waiting for new plans. I took Ellie to the lake. We built a little bridge out of driftwood at the edge of summer. I made pancakes, terrible ones, and she devoured them like they were gourmet. I drove past open houses and did not leave my name anywhere. I measured her small bedroom and sketched a loft bed with steps that doubled as drawers. When she saw the drawing, she gasped like she had found a new color in the crayon box. We built it together, 2 screwdrivers like swords. Then the messages changed tone. My mom wrote, "We overreacted. Let us talk." Jenna sent a long text about being under so much pressure. My dad said, "Family is messy," which is what people tell you right before they ask you to clean up the mess for them. I answered none of them. Silence is a boundary that does not need shouting. Instead, I wrote my own letter. Not a legal one, a personal one. 1 page. I printed it and slid it into their mailbox because I wanted the sound of it landing to matter. Mom, Dad, and Jenna, it started. I love you. That has not changed. What has changed is access. You no longer get keys. You no longer get to set my deadlines. You no longer get to enter my home because you have decided it is yours. We will not be at Sunday dinner for a while. If we talk later, it will happen in a therapist's office with rules. If you post about me, do not. If you show up here, do not. If you try to explain things to Ellie, do not. This is not revenge. This is closure. We are not moving. We were not arguing anymore. We were just building our own life. I signed that letter. No love at the bottom. Just my name. I braced myself for an explosion. Instead, they shifted tactics. People who are used to you bending do not suddenly accept it when you stand up straight. They just try different angles. Jenna posted a photo on Instagram of a shiny key in her hand with the caption "Homeowner Vibes," tagged at some condo complex across town. The comments were full of emojis and congratulations, like confetti for a parade I was not invited to. 3 days later, my mom called, pretending, again, to ask about my boiler. "You know we were only thinking about Ellie," she said. "Children need a yard." "She has one," I replied. "It is about 20 steps from our front door." "But, Mom," I said softly. "Stop." She sniffed into the phone. "Well, if you will not forgive us." "I do forgive you," I said. "I just do not live underneath you anymore." That earned me a dial tone. Not long after, my dad texted, "We are updating our wills." I flipped my phone face down and went back to tracing pieces of Ellie's loft bed on plywood. On the 4th Saturday after court, I ran into Jenna at the grocery store. She gave me this polite, public half-smile. "We should talk," she said. "We are talking," I answered. "You know I did not mean to hurt Ellie," she said. "You told a 7-year-old to keep a secret," I reminded her. "You pulled a safety device out of the wall. You were trying to get a specific result. And you did." Her face tightened. "You always make me the villain." "You keep giving yourself that role," I said. She stepped toward me, then noticed the camera mounted at the end of the aisle and stepped back. "Fine," she said. "Enjoy your little shack." I looked down at what was in my basket: milk, eggs, maple syrup, a box of screws. "I will," I said. After I checked out, I drove straight to a locksmith. I handed him my old deadbolts along with my new sense of resolve. "We had a situation," I said. He nodded like that was something he heard 10 times a day. Maybe he did. While he was cutting the new keys, he looked up and said, "You are the architect who did that addition on the library, right?" "Yeah," I said. "My kid loves that reading nook," he told me. "Says it feels safe." Safe. That word hit different. Most people think safety is just locks, alarms, and building codes. And sure, it is that. But it is also a steady voice on the other end of the phone, the choice to not pick up when you know a call will hurt, a letter that finally says no instead of okay. That night, when the new locks clicked into place, the carriage house felt different. Not bigger, not fancier. Just mine. Ellie made a sign and taped it to the front door in bubbly letters. "Home." And underneath, in smaller writing, "And no secret visits." I did not ask her to write that. I did not have to. She was building her own boundaries too. I can actually pinpoint the day the anger left my body. Not the day the case was thrown out. Not the day the locks were changed. Not the moment I told my mom to stop using yard, like it was a moral requirement. It happened 2 months later. On a Tuesday. I was at my desk laying out a school renovation, trying to figure out how the winter sun would fall across a classroom, when Lydia sent me a photo. Ellie on the school bus. Big gap-toothed grin. Thumbs up. 3 little words under it. "She's okay, Dad." Something inside me unclenched. The part of me that kept waiting for the next blow, the next guilt trip, the next email, it did not vanish, but it moved out of the driver's seat. People love revenge stories. They want some big dramatic payback. This was not that. This was more like a wiring diagram. An as-built drawing. Me finally sketching the lines the way they really are. I still see my parents sometimes. At a cousin's baby shower, I stayed near the coffee table. My mom tested out a few jokes. I answered her when it mattered and walked away when I felt that old emotional gravity tugging at me. My dad tried to talk about football like that was enough to reset everything. We stood in a room full of white balloons and a future that did not include me as the default handyman. Jenna now has her condo. She posts photos of the backsplash. She put up a towel hook and captioned it, "A girl who can do both." Good for her. I do not need credit. I do not need an invitation. On Sundays, Ellie and I build things. We made a cedar bird feeder and hung it where we can see it from the window. Then we went to the library. Safety, I am learning, is a place you choose, not just a place you inherit. Sometimes my mom texts one word, "Therapy?" I reply with the name of a clinic and a time slot. Sometimes they actually show up. And every time we sit in that room, I repeat the same line because the door between us keeps trying to creep open again. I love you. You do not get keys. The court order stays in a clear plastic sleeve. Paper is memory. On days when I start doubting myself, I replay Ellie's video. It is about 15 minutes long. The lesson it carries is much longer. If the people who raised you are willing to disable your alarms to protect their story, then you have to become your own alarm. I told the judge, this is not about revenge. It is still true. It is about Ellie growing up in a home where promises are not hiding knives. It is about refusing to be the wall everyone hangs their needs on. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are seatbelts. Closure is not a slammed door. It is the clean click of a deadbolt that you chose. It is the sound of a saw cutting exactly along the line you measured. It is the solid thunk of a letter landing in a mailbox. It is a text that simply says, "She's okay." Maybe my parents never truly understand. Maybe Jenna never apologizes without adding a "but" at the end. Here is what I do know. When I tuck Ellie in at night, she keeps her tablet next to her because she wants it close, not because she is covering for some adult secret. My name is Luke. I am an architect. I decide where the light goes. I used to be the utility line everyone tapped into. Now I live in a place where the alarms work, the windows open easily, and the one person who has a key actually respects it. No one gets to turn my life into their first home. No one gets to tell my kid to keep dangerous secrets. Family is not going to be the bruise anymore. I am done being rearranged. I build. I protect. I stay calm when people reveal who they are. I tell the truth even when it comes out in a quiet click instead of a shout. I'm not moving. Not like that. Do I regret letting Ellie speak up? Not for a second. She told a small, precise truth. That is what good architecture is. Measure twice. Cut once. Do not hide the load. We are okay. More than okay. We are home.